You're watching Truth versus Hype. The law minister tampers with the CBI's coal status report and pays the price. But in the political storm that's followed, with demands now for the Prime Minister's resignation, a serious question has got buried. What was there in the CBI status report which triggered so much anxiety in the government? Because as we have found over the next 30 minutes, the CBI is a long way away from pinning real accountability in the coal scam. And now the key question, after the Supreme Court's strong words, will they be able to go after the high-powered political nexus that many say was the real heart of Coalgate? Based on the 11 CBI FIRs filed so far, it appears that under the Prime Minister's watch, multiple coal blocks were allotted to companies owned by Congress MPs and ministers, companies owned by the front man for a tainted Chief Minister Madhu Koda, companies whose only prior experience was as metal dealers from Delhi's Chowri Bazaar. But while the CBI booked the directors and owners of these companies for falsifying track records, not a single public servant is directly named. Only unnamed coal ministry and state government officials are charged with criminal conspiracy for willfully not scrutinizing documents. The CBI's FIRs so far seem to parrot the government's line that the Prime Minister and other senior ministers and officials are blameless, and that instead blame must be pinned on the screening committee made up of officials from different ministries and state governments who are ultimately responsible for allocating coal blocks. But the final allotment on each of the coal blocks against whom FIRs have been filed, in fact on all the allotments, was signed by the Prime Minister as the coal minister. Mr. Narayan Swamy, isn't it a fact that the Prime Minister signed each of the coal allotments that are now under the CBI scanner?
Yeah, the final signature was in the allotment. If the people misrepresented, the allotment has been cancelled. The committee that has been constituted in the coal ministry, that additional secretary, when they gave a wrong information, it was cancelled.
But even if he was ill-advised by those below him, surely the buck stops with the minister in charge.
Supposing my secretary, my additional secretary, joint secretary, when they send the file to me, I sign them. Because when there is a fault, the people who misrepresented, action will be taken. Simply because how many cases? Because there are several cases in which the same procedure was followed by in the NDA regime.
आप ये कह रहे हैं कि जो प्रधानमंत्री जब एलोकेशंस पे सिग्नेचर कर रहे थे, बिना डिस्कशन के, मतलब उनको आइडिया नहीं था कि क्या कौन से अलॉटमेंट्स पे कर रहे थे?
नीचे से जब स्क्रीनिंग कमेटी ने बाकायदे बना के भेजा फाइल तैयार करके थ्रू MOS गई जी, तो उस पर डिस्कशन की कोई ज़्यादा गुंजाइश तो नहीं रहती। डिस्कशन की गुंजाइश कहाँ?
वो वैसे ही साइन करते गए वो।
मुझे पता नहीं कैसे साइन किया, लेकिन वो तो साइन करना ही था।
No, I am afraid it's not a credible argument because the Prime Minister knew very well that there is this rush for seeking allotments. The Coal Secretary had written to him about it. He had himself deferred the Coal Secretary's wishes to have an auction scheme in place, and therefore he knew very well that there was a great demand for these allotments, and therefore he ought to have seen whether the screening committee had done its job properly or not. In my view, though the Prime Minister may not have taken money in this case, and the money may have been taken elsewhere in the Congress party, etc., but since he has signed on the files, he would be held culpable.
The government's defense is that he was misled by lower officials. क्या लेकिन सिस्टम में, आपके गवर्नमेंट सिस्टम में अकाउंटेबिलिटी जो मंत्री होते हैं उन्हीं की होती है, तो वो कैसे कह सकते हैं कि रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं?
मंत्री के जिम्मे एक काम होता है, जैसे मैं मंत्री हूँ जी, मेरे जिम्मे कोल मिनिस्ट्री है, मेरे जिम्मे देश की सारी मिनिस्ट्रीज नहीं है। अगर हमारे जिम्मे 50 मिनिस्ट्रीज हो जाए, 70 मिनिस्ट्रीज हो जाए, तो जाहिर है कि मुझको भी वही करना पड़ेगा।
But decision on coal blocks were not taken by lower rung officials. Heading the screening committee during the main period, which is under the CBI scanner, was Coal Secretary H.C. Gupta. Gupta has been questioned by the CBI on several occasions, but the agency has not proceeded any further. Post-retirement, Gupta was made a member of the Competition Commission, which puts him in a joint secretary rank. Now, CBI will need sanctions from the government before they take any further steps regarding him.
Mr. Gupta himself is incommunicado, but in an off-camera conversation, he defended the role of the government, saying that it was only trying to ensure that coal production went up. He also made a series of candid admissions, saying there was no clear system of verifying information supplied by the companies, nor any system where weightage and marks were given to companies, and most importantly, that mistakes may have been made.
This matches the exact findings of the CBI, which also said that no systems or checks were in place, observations the law minister and PMO officials tried to delete. जो सीबीआई ने अपने एफिडेविट में कहा है कि उनके दौरान उनके जो भी उन्होंने फाइंडिंग्स तय किए हैं उससे लगा कि कोई सिस्टम नहीं है, कोई स्प्रेडशीट्स नहीं रखे जा रहे थे, नो सिस्टम वाज इन प्लेस।
हमारे पास
उन्हीं लाइंस को डिलीट करने की कोशिश की गई लॉ मिनिस्टर के दौरान। ये उन्होंने पब्लिक डॉक्यूमेंट है, कोर्ट के सामने रखा है।
हो सकता है कहा हो।
आप सहमत हैं इस बात से कि कोई
सिस्टम? सहमत हूं ना मैं सहमत हूं, कोर्ट का जजमेंट आने दीजिए।
The other major players who played a key role in the allotment of blocks are the Minister of State for Coal at that time, Dasari Narayan Rao and Santosh Bagrodia, both of whom have been questioned by the CBI but no further action. NDTV has learned that every single coal allotment finalized by the screening committee had to go through these ministers of state before it reached the Prime Minister's desk, which once again demolishes the government's attempts to pass the buck to lower rung officials. Of the two, Rao had a longer stint in the coal ministry and is on record repeatedly resisting the switch to a bidding system, claiming lack of political consensus.
The CBI has also recorded a statement from another former Minister of State for Coal, that is Dasari Narayan Rao. Probably he was asked as to why the Prime Minister's own instructions to have, open competitive bidding, to have a system of coal block allocation that was transparent, that was, not arbitrarily, given out. So I think maybe Mr. Dasari Narayan Rao would have, said that, look, I did what I could.